Welcome to the Firehouse, the show dedicated to the brave men and women who serve our community.
To the Firehouse on WRHU 88.7. I am your host, Chris Moses, and today, sitting with me in the Firehouse is my man, Gerry. And I want to make sure I say it right? Because you said, I was saying Gagliano,
right?
But you were saying that we dropped the G. The old school Italians dropped the G. So how do you say it?
Gagliano.
Gagliano. There we go. What's going on, man?
It's going.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
So, listen, I know a little bit about you because I read your bio, but
right.
I want the listeners to find out about you. So, do me a favor. Tell them what's your full name, what department you're in, what ranks you've held, and how long you've been in.
Okay. Gerard Gagliano. I'm a member of the Hicksville Fire Department, volunteer hose company number 4, and I also do EMS. I got in 1983 after being in the juniors for about 5 years.
Okay.
I am a ex-captain of rescue, and I'm also a retired Firecom dispatcher. I worked there for 26, 27 years.
Wow. So we're going to get into that. So
Sure.
In a whole, how much in the volunteer services?
I guess it's about 41 years now.
41 years. I know you got some stories, and we're going to get into those stories.
Sure.
Stories. But let's start from the beginning, Gerry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start from the beginning. What makes you want to be a firefighter?
Well, for me, it was probably a combination of 2 or 3 things. For the biggest thing was my grandfather was a member of Hempstead.
Okay.
Going way back,
Shout
like
out to
maybe
Hempstead.
maybe the late 20s, early 30s. That's how far back. But
Wow.
growing up,
okay.
I used to hear a lot of his stories. He was great at telling stories and stuff. And it just kind of, as a little kid, I was like, wow, that sounds cool.
Wow.
And then the other thing was in Hicksville, every year around, right the Sunday after Thanksgiving,
Okay.
they ride around with Santa Claus on a truck.
There we go.
unlike a lot of departments who do their fundraiser in October during Fire Prevention Week, Hicksville kind of did a little bit differently going back years ago, where they had their open house fire prevention thing 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, right before Christmas. And they used Santa Claus as like the draw to bring.
The draw. Yeah, that's a good. You departments hear that? Because that's a good idea. Uniondale, you hear that? We may have to do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it was. And we used to have people lined up down the block, to get in. It was an amazing amount of people. But over the years, the crowds kind of dropped off a little bit, and now we do it back in October when everybody else does it. But the community loved us going around throwing out popcorn balls to the kids so much that they almost demanded that we pretty much keep up with that tradition. It's been going on since probably the early 60s, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. So just for our listeners and people that don't know, a lot of departments, that's what they do. They will, around that Christmas time, the holiday time, will put Santa, sometimes even Mrs. Claus.
Yep.
We've had the Grinch up on top of the rig, and we ride around the neighborhood making a bunch of noise, playing Christmas carols, handing out candy canes, and the community loves it.
They do.
They really, really love it.
Yeah, they do. And it confuses them sometimes, too, because sometimes you're out there and you get a call in the middle of what you're doing. And we have, like you said, the characters and stuff on the truck. We had an auto accident one year in the middle of everything, and they had Mickey Mouse and somebody else hauling a hearse tool out to the corner. So it happens, but you got to roll with it.
You still got to do your job. You're sitting there, you got Santa Claus pumping the rig.
Yeah.
You got to love it. You got to love it.
Yep.
All right. So you started in the juniors, right?
Yeah.
So what year was that you started in the juniors?
1978.
1978. Now, the juniors, how long was it? Was it going for a while? Did they always have the junior program? Like, how did that work over in Hicksville?
They started the junior program probably back in the early 70s, I guess.
Okay.
And it's gone through a couple of changes here and there. They stopped for a little while right before I got in, and then they rebranded it as like a youth activity group. And I think we were covered more or less under the Boy Scouts as like an explorer group.
Okay.
And it's still going today.
All right. So you start as the juniors.
Yep.
Obviously, you immediately fall in love. You already were kind of in love.
Yeah.
Now you're in the juniors, so now you're getting a little taste of it.
Right.
And then you say, all right, I'm going to join in, right?
Absolutely.
So what year is that you joined?
I joined in 83.
Joined in 83.
Yeah.
So now you're in 83 is here. Take us through that. If you remember, which most people do, that first couple of calls that you went through, when you're now on that rig and you're an official, firefighter at this moment?
Oh, it was exciting because all the time you were in the juniors and you got a chance to work with some of the stuff, and that's like 5 years of waiting to actually put it to
do
use.
Something.
And the downside of that, though, is a lot of departments when you first get in, you're pretty much relegated to doing stuff like being the hydrant man, or when your first couple of rides out, you're pretty much just doing.
Which is one of the most important positions. We've talked about that before, and we put that for the junior man.
Yep, it's true. And either that or you're a gopher, give me a tool, do this, do that.
Yeah. So, at that time, 83, and I had someone on from the academy before, and I don't remember when they said the academy started, but did you have the academy then? Did you have the fire service academy? So you went out to Bethpage and did what you had to do over in Bethpage? Yeah,
took all my primary schools and all that stuff. And in fact, I got in maybe 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I got sworn in. And I didn't have anything lined up yet for the summer, and they had that program during the summer where you could go weekdays.
Perfect.
So I figured, let me knock this out, like 2.5 weeks, get it all done. And while everybody else was going on Friday nights, every Friday for like 2 months, I banged it out in 2 weeks and it was
done.
Done, yeah.
All right, so we're in Hicksville. What ranks did you hold?
I'm ex-captain of rescue.
Okay.
That's kind of like a little bit of a gray area because back in the day we had a rescue squad.
Okay.
And it was all members from the different companies. We have 8 companies in Hicksville.
Okay.
So
wow.
I
didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah, we have 8 companies.
8 companies.
And
wow.
It's members from those companies that want to do EMS type stuff.
Okay.
So the officers in rescue back then were line officers, same as an engine company officer or a truck company officer. Okay. You had to go to the same schools, get the same background, and literally, if you went to a fire call and there were no fire officers around, you were it. You're the fire officer now. But a couple of years ago, we started taking in people that just wanted to do EMS only.
They just wanted to do EMS,
right? Only. So they don't have to take the same schools and stuff. And those people that do that now, they're not considered line officers anymore. They're just like a squad leader or whatever you call it, but. In the grand scheme of things, I was in that time period where if you were an ex-captain from rescue, you're in there. Full-blown ex-captain, yeah.
In there.
Right.
So, but either way, what makes you want to do that? Because some people want to just stay just firefighter, just EMS. I'm just staying there. What makes you want to now become an officer? Like, what made you want to take that step?
At the time, we just really didn't have many people, number one, qualified, and like you said, people that just didn't want to do it.
Just want to do it.
Yeah, and especially on the rescue end, a lot of people were more focused on they wanted to be a officer in their own company. Yeah, and the rescue thing was an additional commitment on top of your company duties. Now you got to do all of that stuff. So but.
All right, so let's move into Firecom a little bit, right? Because that's what you do. Well, you're retired now, right?
I'm retired, about 5 years now I'm retired. But,
retired. So I want to know how you get into that, right? Because we went to the juniors, right?
Yep.
We start the juniors. Now we're actually get into Hicksville.
Right.
So we're in Hicksville. I guess, I don't know where you work. Where are you working at this moment when you first get into Hicksville? You going to school? What's going on?
I did a little bit of school in the very beginning.
Okay.
And then, I got my EMT. And right after I got my EMT, I went right into a AMT class, EMT-CC.
Which they don't even have no more, right? Do they still have it? Because I know they don't have CCs.
They actually, I think they do. If at the medical center at the Fire Police EMS Academy, they still do refreshers and stuff for EMT-CC.
Okay.
I think they still do original courses too.
Yeah, because I remember before it was gone. They didn't have it. And
it went straight from EMT to you had to be a paramedic.
But go ahead.
I did all that stuff, and then I got a job with a private ambulance company. It's called Bi-County Ambulance, and I was working for them for about a year.
Okay.
And then I had a friend of mine who told me there was an opening going to be coming up in Westbury for a dispatcher.
Okay.
And I went down, put a resume in, an application, and literally that afternoon the guy
called you.
Put his 2 weeks notice in the same day I put my application in, so it was conveniently sitting on top of the pile.
Perfect. Look at that. So it's almost meant to be.
Exactly.
Meant to be.
And it was they knew it was something I had wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Even going back to the juniors, I always thought looking at the dispatcher was it was fascinating that the phone rings, and then he sets everything into motion.
And does everything, right?
That was like it. I was like, that's cool. I could do that.
All right, so you start as a dispatcher in Westbury. So that's where the real experience comes from, right? Because that's where you start. That's where you learn. And then, how long were you there? And
I worked at Westbury for about 8.5 years. When I left, the last like 2 years I was there, I was the district supervisor before I left, and then the Firecom job finally came up.
Okay, so how did you got to walk us through that? How does that happen? Like, what happens?
Well, that was another interesting one, because at that time the county was similar to what they're going through now. They always seem to be going through a budget crisis, you know. And but it was bad back then. This was like probably 1992.
Okay.
And they were talking about cutting out things like the Fire Service Academy, VEB, Fire Police EMS. They were talking about cutting all that stuff out.
Okay.
And they had a big rally. All the fire departments got together, and they had one truck from each department with as many people as they could get show up at the county executive's building when they were having a legislative meeting. And they literally just circled the firehouse with the trucks, you know, on the sirens blaring and everything. And then
gotta love the fire department. When we stick together, we stick together.
It was impressive, because they staged everybody down Old Country Road, down by where the Source Mall is in the back parking lot. And then once they got everybody together, it was just this parade of fire trucks going down Old Country Road. And we were up towards the front, and I remember looking out the window to the back, and the trucks were still coming out of the driveway of the parking lot. And it just looked like it never ended. Then once we got to the executive building, they parked the trucks, and they had like a little rally in front, and they had like 1 or 2 people went up and addressed the meeting, and sure enough, they passed a lot of stuff, kept all the necessary services,
things and everything,
and they okayed Firecom to hire like 5 or 6 people.
Okay, and
you
were one of them.
Like, apparently a couple of weeks after that, I got the phone call. Yeah, you know, you're on the list. You still interested in the job? And I'm like, absolutely.
All right, so listen, I'm gonna need some of these Firecom stories, because, you know, Firecom is to me, I was always taught the candy store, right?
Yeah,
if I need anything, this is who I call. If I'm not
Right.
sure about something, anything, this is who I'm calling. I'm calling Firecom. So I know you got some stories. I know you got some stories. So
Sure.
give me some good stories that you have, you know, that you've encountered being in Firecom.
I mean, there's anything from funny stories to like,
anything.
heartbreaking
Let's start with a funny
stories.
one.
I mean,
Let's start with a funny one.
Funny story. Well, it was in the middle of, I guess it was in the middle of like the Gulf War, and the emergency phone rang, picked it up, and it was a woman talking real quiet on the other end of the phone. And this was when when Saddam Hussein was still on the run.
Okay.
and apparently he wound up under this woman's bed in whatever town she was in, because she swore he was under her bed. And I was like, okay, so let me get a cop car going over there to check this out, and then I'll try to amuse this lady while they're doing that. But that's just a taste of some of the funny stuff that happens.
Some of the stuff that you get, the calls that you would get.
Some of the stuff's pretty bizarre. Yeah.
What else? Now I know. So obviously, you know, you said 1983 you've been in, and then you were in. When did you start Firecom?
Firecom in 1993.
1993. So you know, 9/11. You were at Firecom.
I was front and center in that.
So how does that work on the Firecom side? We had some, you know, firefighters that had told us that, you know, they would dispatch, they went out there, but on the Firecom side, how does that work with you?
Well, it started off just like a normal day. And at that time, we only had, it was back in the old building over in Mineola, Garden City over there behind police headquarters. We only had like one TV in the console room.
Wow.
And the rules were back then at like 7 o'clock, you shut the TV off and just focused on, because there was a lot of stuff going on during the day. So we had no idea anything was even going on. The chief's secretary, they listened to the news radio in the office. And she came out and said, you know, there's something on the radio. So the plane went into the World Trade Center, and we put the TV on, and the bosses came out and okayed it. And so we put and obviously, we saw what everybody else saw, and we were like, "Oh man, this is not good."
This is not good.
And then the second plane hit as we were watching, and we can communicate direct with FDNY. We have their radios and stuff, so we turned all that on, and we were listening to all stuff going on, and what ends up happening is cell sites, if they get overloaded and they can't process any more data, it bounces off to the next closest cell site. Okay. There was so many people in the city that were calling that all of those cell sites were so overloaded calls were starting to jump over to hit the, like, up in Great Neck, Manhasset area. They were hitting the cells up there.
Wow.
And I picked up the one call, and it ended up being somebody who was in, like, one of the upper floors on the towers.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, now we're starting to get some of these calls, and took the information. The guy next to me, as I was taking that call, he got another one. So we had about 5 or 6 that we took from people inside the towers. And we got off the phone and notified FDNY, and they said, just keep doing what you're doing. Telling them we got crews in the building. They're on the way. We're going to do what we got to do. And like 2 minutes later, the towers went down. And, you know, we were just like, well, you know, the people that you were just talking to, they're gone.
They're just gone. Wow.
And as with everybody else, you have every fire department, you have guys that, you know, city firemen, medics, city cops.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, you know, how many of those people were there, and are they still, are you going to see them again?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the resources were there, and they started recalling some of their units from all over the place, and outlying areas like Queens and Brooklyn and stuff. They sent our volleys to go cover some of those outlying houses. And they also called in like some heavy rescue units and stuff right into Ground Zero.
Wow.
So when they called up and said, you know, we need this, that was when we started calling in some people for overtime and started getting everything going.
Here.
Yeah, we had our field comm unit. I think they went out to the parking lot at Shea Stadium at the time, City Field in that area, and that's where they were like staging all the Nassau units. And then they put them in the houses to where they had to go to. And then they had a secondary problem, which was communication. All these guys from the volley houses out here were in the firehouses in the city, and city dispatch had no way of communicating with them at that time.
Right, yeah.
So they took field comm, and we ended up going to the Queens dispatch facility.
Okay.
And we had 2 dispatchers in the truck and 2 dispatchers up in the dispatch office itself. So we would get the calls in the dispatch office, send it down to the truck, and then they would send whatever unit was at whatever house had to go, and communicate with them from there and let us know what was going
on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think I was in there for probably 18, 19 hours. I think I was in their dispatch office, and that was like weird because every time they recovered someone, you know, it would come across their wire, and you kept looking to see if it was a name you recognized. But
it was
just
a lot.
The amount of stuff. On their status board, they had, like over on the right side, their supervisor told me, he's like, there's all those companies you see on the right side, they're all unaccounted for right now. Like complete companies.
Full companies.
And they have no idea where those guys wound up and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's 9/11. I know also you went through Sandy, and that was something for Long Island, right?
That was absolutely crazy.
I know. So come on, talk to me, because so that was something that I personally went through.
Yeah.
I wasn't in for 9/11, but I was in through Sandy. So and I remember how crazy it was.
Yep.
I remember Uniondale being basically their own Firecom because you all were overloaded with stuff. So walk me through that a little bit.
Well, it started slow, you know, and we
just like everything.
Yep, we
always quiet before the storm.
Exactly, but we had every single. I mean, we were in the new building by this point over in Newcastle, and we had every single console manned. You know, so there's 12 radio consoles proper, and then there's about 5 or 6 other spots where you can do just telephone answering. Okay. So we had every single phone spot and radio spot covered. I never saw that before, and I don't think I've ever seen it since. But it was like somebody flipped the switch. All of a sudden, the place lit up. Every single phone line was lit. It was
going.
Yeah, the chief fire marshal was there watching this. I saw the look on his face, and I happened to be the supervisor that day too. I was a day shift supervisor. So when that hit, I was like, "Oh, great! I got to be in charge.
I got to be in charge of this."
But I'm telling you, those guys impressed the heck out of me because I don't think they missed one single call. I mean, I don't think one call got dropped or lost or anything. Even the fire marshal himself said it, you know, that it was, you know, he knew we were good, but he had no idea we were that good. But you know, we definitely showed what it was like. But it was absolutely, we were getting calls. In fact, two of our members, one guy's house was like completely underwater and his mother was still inside. My God. So he had to call his own fire department, and they sent, you know, the people down to get her out and bring her back to the firehouse. Wow. And there was another guy whose wife called up and said, you know, that we're going to bail. The water's up to the front door. And,
we're out.
I had my in-laws live in Island Park, and the same thing.
So
they were like, it was crazy.
It was insane.
And I remember there was, I think it was Massapequa. They literally had like one block that was completely inaccessible, and there were like 3 houses on fire on that block, and they couldn't even get down to get it.
A lot of people don't understand, Sandy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
There was no real preparing for that. You can, draw up plans,
as many plans as you want, but when you go down the block and 4 houses is on fire
and you can't get down
even
there,
get there, what do you're just watching at this moment.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh,
so
it sure is.
I got a question for you when it comes to Firecom. For a lot of the listeners and the people that are listening, how do they become a part of Firecom? Let's say someone is listening and they're like, this is what they want to do. How do they become, to get hired or even to start training for something like that?
Well, it's a civil service test.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether it's down to 3 years service as a volunteer fire in Nassau. Okay. I think it's like the fire marshal's office, where it's 3 years as a volunteer firefighter in Nassau County. Okay. And we have people that came in with literally no experience. It's not like some people like me dispatched different places. I did Westbury and part-time at Hicksville and worked at Syosset and Jericho for a little while. And I finally found my way there. But it's you apply for the test, you take the test, and go for the interview, which is weird. I mean, I think you had James Hickman in a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, I did.
He told you that it's the same thing. You're in a room in front of the 9 delegates from the fire commission, and they're all firing questions at you, and it's a
little intimidating.
It is, But if you come in prepared and you're
ready to go.
Yeah. And I know they're starting to hire more people now finally, because these guys were so short-staffed.
Wow.
For so long.
So that's good. That's good. And then you left. So you left 5 years. You said 5 years ago you've been there?
I've been gone now 5 years, and we've had about 3 or 4 more that have left since then. 1 or 2 of them, unfortunately, we had 2 people pass away, over the last couple of years and stuff. And, that was a pretty big hit. Yeah.
5 years out, retired.
Yeah.
5 years out, retired. How's retirement life, man? How is retirement life?
I seem like I'm busier now than I was when I worked, but it's not like work related stuff. It's all running errands and doing stuff, and I'm keeping busy. I play drums in a band.
Yep. So we wanted to get on that. What's the name of the band?
The band is called High Street.
High Street. Okay.
Yep, now we're a cover band. We play everything from probably 50s up to today.
Okay, all right.
We play parties, weddings, but mostly like bars and restaurants, things like that.
All right. You was telling me last night you did
something. We played for like a softball awards dinner last night.
Okay, that's nice.
At Verdi's in Westbury. So.
Oh yeah, of course. Everyone who doesn't know Verdi's.
Oh yeah, right.
So shout out to High Street. How could anyone get in contact with High Street?
You can look us up on Facebook and Instagram. If you just search High Street, High Street Band New York, I think it is, and it comes up.
And it comes up.
Yep.
Okay, and then they can contact you if they want to have you play for something.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done a couple of fire department fundraisers already.
Okay.
So it's if you need a band for a fundraiser, let us know.
There you go. How long have you been playing?
I started playing when I was like 9 years old.
Wow. Okay. 9. Wow.
Yeah.
So you started young.
Oh yeah.
Okay. How many? And I've always when I've talked to people been in bands, they've been in like 5 bands before they settled on one.
Right.
So was that you too? Were you in a bunch of bands before?
Well, bands in general have like a shelf life. If you can get like 5 or 6 years out of a band,
you're good to go.
Before everything starts to go crazy, you're
apart.
Good. So yeah, ever since I think I got in my first wedding band when I was like 14 years old.
Wow.
And started playing weddings and stuff back then, and I've been doing all kinds of stuff ever since. I did right after I got out of high school, I worked with a group that did like all kinds of high school and college musical productions, like Broadway musicals. I did that stuff for a while, and I was probably in and out of about 7 or 8 different bands in that time period. We had one band that was we did all original stuff, all our own stuff, and we put out like 2 CDs.
Wow.
We opened up for the Dandy Warhols. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Cool. So how long has High Street been?
High Street's been together. We're at that point. We've been together for about 6 years now, but we're still moving along.
We're still moving along.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully, good luck to you all, and hope they stay together.
Exactly.
Everything goes. So I just want to get back to just Firecom real quick, and as a dispatcher, because we've had a couple of dispatchers on. My first question to a dispatcher is: does it make you cringe when you hear people on the radio not using the right terminology?
Oh yeah,
and things like that.
Terminology is everything, but it's like everything else in the fire service. everything changes from you can't go back to like when I started dispatch, and I think I started Westbury in 85. So you can't really go back to what it was in 85 to what it is now. The rules have all changed. And you got to remind yourself of that sometimes. Like the guys now are learning stuff that we were told not to do, and it's okay to do it now. You know, and there were things that we would want to do the same that they're doing now, but back in the day we were told, oh no, you can't do that. You know? Why? It makes sense to do it this way, you know. But now some of the old school thinking kind of is out, and we got the more progressive people now that, you know, they're doing the right thing.
All right, so I need you to answer this question. You may not have an answer for it, but let's see.
Okay.
What could you tell right now? We have a lot of departments that listen to the show.
Right.
What is something that you could tell the departments right now as Firecom? Like, hey, don't say this on the radio when you call Firecom. Is there anything you could think of that you could be like, hey, don't do this or do this?
I think probably the one that frustrates you the most is when you get requests for the electric company, when they call for 27E. And inevitably, like 10 minutes later, it seems like they're calling for an ETA, which, depending on what time of day it is, if it's at night, they literally only have one crew on that's covering pretty much all Nassau County. So this guy could be down in Hewitt, you know, and somebody up in Plainview is looking for an electric truck. It's going to take them a little while.
It's going to take them some time. So everybody know that is listening. My departments, when you call Firecom and you call for 27E, you got to wait.
Right. That's it.
You got to wait.
And
they
we don't
know.
We don't have a magic number that we can call them. We're calling the same number that everybody else calls.
Everyone else is calling.
So it's not like we have a magic number or a secret password where we can say step it up. You know, it's
go
like,
faster.
Oh, well, we got one guy. He'll be there when he gets there.
It is.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So we play a little game here.
Right.
We call it the flashover.
Sure.
So you know I got to have you play this game, the flashover. So basically how the game goes is that I will give you two things, maybe Android or Apple, and you tell me what you like the best, right? And there'll be some movies and TV shows that will go.
Okay.
If you didn't watch them, you say I don't watch it. But if you have, I need to know which one you like, which one's better, you know, which is your favorite. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, Jerry.
Yep.
You ready for the flashover?
Sure, let's go.
You're ready for the flashover. Okay. I need your answers really quick. Here we go. Chicago Fire Rescue Me.
Oh, probably Rescue Me.
Rescue Me. Rescue Me Third Watch.
Third Watch.
Backdraft Ladder 49.
Oh, I got to go with Backdraft because I was right in the middle of that when it came out, and that was just you had to like that movie.
You had to, right? All right, and then the most important question I'm going to ask today, engine or truck? And this is as a rescue guy, which is technically truck, right? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, when I first joined, I joined Hook and Ladder Company #1.
Okay.
And now I'm in the hose company, and I did the rescue in between. But I've been in the hose company probably longest out of anything, so I'm going to go with the hose.
We're going to go with engine. There we go. We're going to go with engine. Put the wet stuff on the red stuff. Let's do it. I love it. So just talking about the movies, which we've talked before on this show, you know, a lot of things are always over-dramatized in that, right?
Yep.
So what is one thing that you've seen, especially on Backdraft, that you're like, this is not what I do. I don't do this at all. Yeah. And then on the other side, is there any shows that you've seen that's like, you know what? As a dispatcher, this is what I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Backdraft is just, it seems like almost everything that they went out with was just, most of the stuff on there was like not even stuff you would see on a normal basis.
Normal basis.
Right. But as far as like, going back to when I was really young.
Okay.
I think I was probably about 10 years old when Emergency came on.
Oh, yes.
And back in the day, that was surprisingly accurate.
It was good. Okay.
Of the stuff that they were doing. And at the time, didn't realize it, but doing the stuff as long as I have now, when you look at the reruns now,
you're like,
and you think about it, and it's like, well, yeah, you know, that's pretty much spot on, 90% of the stuff. You know?
How about dispatch-wise, when you watch some of these shows, is it in comparison to what you do? Are they using the proper terminology? Are they doing the things right? Do you think they have someone like you in the back helping them out?
I think probably.
I would think they should.
They should probably.
But when you're watching it, are you like, yeah, you know what? They did pretty good.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, they don't focus on it probably as much as you think they should.
Yeah.
To really get that much of you get a glimpse every once in a while, but. In terms of like doing the emergency medical dispatch stuff with it, they have a person on the phone and they're giving medical instructions off the computer and stuff. That's pretty close to accurate.
On.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So before we finish, I just want to talk a little bit more about Hicksville, just being in Hicksville, right? So you've been in how long in Hicksville again?
I joined in 83. That's about 41 years now. I missed a couple of years because I had back surgery, so it's kind of sidelined for a little while. But yeah,
you're still in there.
Yeah, right? I became a life member years ago, so you know, it's
you're still coming around. You know,
but now I'm
knife
back.
And fork, or what they call them, right?
Yeah. Well, now I'm back. Can't really do the firefighting end of stuff as much anymore. So now I'm pretty much just relegated to doing the EMS stuff. So.
Yeah, but still, we need people like you because you have the experience, and you're able to help these newer people that come in. So I gotta ask that question for that newer person that is listening right now, that wants to join or is thinking about joining or already in. Right. What type of advice would you give them?
For people that are thinking about joining, go on a Sunday morning. Just go down to your local firehouse. There's always somebody there. You know, meet up with them, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We get it all the time. So and for the new people that just got in, it's the same thing. You get to know pretty quick the people that know what they're talking about versus the ones that don't want to even bother with you. But find those ones that look like they want to take a little extra time with you. And especially the guys that have been in for a while. You know, you'd be amazed at what you learn from some. A lot of people come in with like the attitude like, oh, they don't fight fires like that anymore. You know, we do it all different now. And but you can still pick up a lot of things. And some of their stories are like really great. Like when I got in 83, I was listening to the old timers that were talking about stuff from like the 40s and 50s.
Wow.
That was like back before they were using SCBA and everything
before
else.
Before they even had bunker pants and all of that, right? It was jeans and a turnout
coat. that typical standard. And it was just, but it was wild, going through that stuff. And you see how much stuff has changed. Yeah. But seek out those guys. Ask them. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Seek out the Jerrys. Seek out the Jerrys to learn.
Some people might not say that, but whatever.
But looking at it from the EMS standpoint, right? I know that's just. Shout out to all of my EMTs. It is such a tough job. It's something that I personally was like, I can't do, right? I don't think I'm built for that, right? I can't walk up to someone's house and they hand me their blue baby and say, fix this. Like,
it's not for everybody.
It takes a lot. So shout out. And it's, I've said this before, people say this and say that, but, EMS is the ones that take care of you when you are down. I was down. I had a motorcycle accident, and it was in my town, and they took care of me. They took care of me. So just going with that when it comes to EMS, right? What would you say to someone that wants to get into just EMS? What would you say to that person? Not just just fire service in a whole, just even as a career in EMS.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one of the things you can tell them if they're interested in it. There are a lot of careers, especially in EMS. Yeah. If you do it, but it's important to just pay attention to, and again, ask questions.
It's the main thing.
EMS, we go out a lot of times. We're in the public eye a lot more than the engine companies and ladder companies a lot.
That's right.
Because you're doing like we have the high school homecoming coming up. We're going to be doing standby for that. And you have
concerts, everything.
Exactly. You have different festivals and things like that I just did a standby 2 weeks ago at a Greek festival.
Wow.
And if you see the ambulance sitting there, go up to the crew, talk to them, ask them, show you around the inside of the ambulance or whatever. And that's the easiest way to do it.
All right.
And we're out there, so you'll see us all the time. So
always there. Yep. Always there, ready to help.
Right.
All right. So before we get out of here, I just need to know: is there any other stories that you want to tell, especially about EMS, things that happened that you saw?
Well, I got probably plenty of stories of the Avianca plane crash.
Oh, talk to us. Talk to us.
That
there we go.
Actually, that happened. We actually had our first officers meeting of the year, and I had just gotten sworn in as captain, so it was my first officers meeting as captain. And we just finished, and the chief was leaving, and he came back about 2 minutes later, came back in, and he was asking us if we had the scanner on. and we were watching I think it was a Ranger game we were watching on TV at the time. So we had the scanner on, but we weren't really listening to it. So we turned it up, and he's like, yeah, I thought I could have swore I heard somebody say something about a plane crash. Sounded like maybe Oyster Bay or something like that. And we were like, no, I didn't hear anything like that. And with that, East Norwich went out with a mutual aid to Oyster Bay. So we were like, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, he's right.
So, yeah. But we did the same thing that probably everybody else did, thinking about that area and where it was and stuff. We all thought it was probably a small plane went down. I think anytime there's a plane crash, the first instinct is like, it's probably a small plane. But Chief was like, well, maybe we should just like get some stuff ready anyway, because we're not that far from there. And we started putting a crew together, and we went up to the dispatch office. And at the time when we walked in the dispatch office, one of our members, George Howard, who passed away on September 11th.
Yeah.
He was a big guy with the Port Authority, and he did a lot of the heavy rescue stuff with the Port Authority police. And he was like the go-to guy. He was an instructor at the academy. Just, if you wanted to learn anything about the fire service, he was your man. He was the guy. And he was on the phone with his job. So he was getting all the information that nobody else had at that point. The type of plane it was, about how many people were on board, and the fact that it was circling around and just basically ran out of gas and that was it. Went down.
And went down.
So when we realized it was a commercial airline, we're like, we're definitely going to this thing now.
Definitely going.
And sure enough, they called for, I think, an ambulance, heavy rescue, and I think they sent our foam and cascade unit.
Yeah. Okay.
And, and it was different. We were like one of probably the first like 6 or 7 departments up there. And
what does it look like when you pull up to a scene?
It was like
it's a plane.
Yeah, it was surreal because we had to go down a side street, kind of. It was literally the road that takes you to Teddy Roosevelt's house up in Oyster Bay Cove.
Okay.
Up at Sagamore Hill. And that's where they had you dropping people off. And then you had to walk up. It looked like another little side street, but in that neck of the woods, it was somebody's driveway.
Yeah.
They don't have like our driveway, which is like 10 feet long. Yeah. and this thing was like a quarter mile long, the driveway. So we're lugging up all our stuff up this driveway. And they didn't have any lights or anything. They were using the lights from the news cameras at that point.
Wow.
To light up what was going on. And it was pitch black that night. It was like foggy and just I mean, no lights anywhere on the walkway up. Then when you got to the top of the hill, you saw the news lights lighting up this plane, and it was just it was like cracked in half on the hill. Half of it was in the back of somebody's backyard.
Wow.
And it was just like this is
not real.
Yeah.
This is from a movie.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll get to like a car accident. Sometimes it's like an overturn, and even that you look at it and it's like that's not right. That's not supposed to be like that. But the plane was like that times 10.
Wow.
And the fact that there was so many survivors.
Yeah.
You when we were walking around to where they were starting to do triage, that's where they sent us when we first.
Was there a lot of fire when you pulled up, or not really? There was
literally no fire. In fact, going back to George Howard again, he went up to the Oyster Bay chief and was telling him to start firing up some of the tools to start cutting into the.
Yeah.
And the chief was like worried about an explosion, and George was like, "It ran out of gas. That's why there's nothing to light. It's not going to go on fire.
It's not going to go on fire.
So, but
we can have a backup line ready to go, but it's not going to.
Yeah, I mean, some of the hydraulic stuff maybe, but where they were, he knew exactly where to cut and all that other stuff to avoid that stuff, which was excellent having him there.
Yeah.
But there was so many. They had a lot of people already out of the plane, and they were putting them in the backyard of the house. We were doing triage back there. And then they ended up sending the ALS people up to the front of the house because they were starting to transport people to the hospitals now. And I think by this time they had like doctors and stuff from the hospitals and nurses and stuff was starting to get to the scene, and they were prioritizing. And as luck would have it, I ended up catching my own ambulance.
Wow, look at that.
So I was familiar with everything on board. I didn't have to worry about that.
And
I had two people in the back of the ambulance. I had a guy who was about in his late 60s, I guess. In a suit and tie, looked like he was coming to visit family or whatever it was. And then there was another younger guy, I would say maybe about 20, and he was on the second stretcher on his side. And I had myself, I had an EMT from, I think it was Huntington Community Ambulance, and I had another AMT from Jericho with me.
Okay.
And the young guy had a pretty decent head injury, that he was more stable than the older gentleman. And I don't even think we hit Jericho. We were going to the medical center, and I don't even think we hit Jericho's Firehouse when this guy went into arrest.
Wow.
And the old guy. So we started working on him, and forget about trying to get through MedCom for instructions or whatever. So we just basically went with standing orders that they usually give you.
Yeah.
and try to do as best you could. You know, and in between, while you're doing him, you're going to the other guy, trying to make sure he's got the EMT looking after him. But you want to make sure he's not crashing on you too. You know, and we worked that all the way up to the medical center, and you know, unfortunately, the older gentleman didn't make it, and the young guy, I guess it was 2 days after, I opened up Newsday, and they had the big story about how they had a couple of Colombian drug mules that were on the
plane.
On the plane, and they had the one guy who literally had like, I don't know, 10 or 11 packs of stuff, you know, impacted. I don't want to say where.
We know where.
Exactly.
We know where.
Yeah. You get told to put it there sometimes, but yeah. And then that ended up being the young guy that I had in the back of my ambulance.
Wow,
and I'm like, holy smokes. I had no idea the potential of what could have gone wrong with this guy.
Yep.
You know?
Wow. Look at that.
That's
See?
it. Well, that
These
training you got, it's, you know, they could
things
still
happen.
You don't know.
You just don't know what to do.
Right.
That is wow.
Yep.
All right. Listen. I still have so many more questions, but I know that we're running out of time here. But wow, because that plane alone, like you know, that is insane to walk up to that and see something like that. I know that's like, what in the hell?
Yep.
And all the training and everything. But I got a question for you though. With all of that said, 5 years retired.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right now, if they called you and said, "Hey, we want you back, Firecom," would you do it?
Absolutely.
You would do it.
Yeah, I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat.
You'd do it all over again in a heartbeat right now.
I'm sure there's probably a couple of people who'd be like, no. but I would definitely jump back in there.
Jump right back in and get right back in there.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Listen, Gerry, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
so much for coming down. Is there anything that I'm forgetting? Anything that you want to mention before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I think we about covered it.
All right, we about covered it. Hicksville, if people want to join Hicksville, tell them where should they show up to?
Any firehouse. We have 4 firehouses. So any firehouse on a Sunday, go down there, talk to somebody, or you can stop anytime during the week at our headquarters on Marie Street.
There you go.
And see the dispatcher.
Tell them that Gerry sent you.
Yeah, right, that's it.
Tell them that Gerry sent you. All
Absolutely.
right. Listen, Gerry, thank you so much for coming down to the firehouse and telling us about everything.
Sure, thanks for having me. It was great.
All right, thank you. All right, so we just heard from Gerard Gagliano from the Hicksville Fire Department about his life as a firefighter. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Please like, share, subscribe, do all of those things. I am your host, Chris Moses, and tune in next week for another great conversation in the firehouse.